Yeah. I mean, look, I think a lot of these hearings end up being performances. It's really political theater.
100%.
And at the moment,
good point.
Right now for Democrats, it's nothing but political theater, because all you need is a simple majority in the Senate to, confirm these Trump nominees. And so they're using this as a moment to kind of do their own political virtue signaling to their base.
Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian just tore the far left a new one, and it was brutal. No mercy, no filter, just straight up facts and fire. This entire hearing, a joke, a performance. The Democrats aren't even pretending anymore. It's all about grandstanding for their base, turning these hearings into a reality TV show instead of actually vetting nominees. And Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian, they weren't having it. They called out the nonsense, the fake outrage, and the complete lack of focus on anything that actually matters. So let's get into this takedown piece by piece.
And so I understand that. And look, I mean, what you're saying is really subjective. Some women are super into it. Some people are really into seeing like a strong fighter, especially a woman in the Senate. Others are turned off by it. So I totally hear what you're saying. But I do think that Gillibrand asked some pretty good questions. So we'll see what happens.
Anna's right. Just real quick, Megyn. Yeah. Ana makes a great point here. I didn't find it offensive for any of those other reasons. I found it offensive as a purported professional communicator, because for me, I couldn't figure out who the audience was that was persuadable or who they were seeking to mobilize beyond their most active base. And I think that's the big problem, right? And I think that's consistent with Anna's assessment of it too, which is that if you're only communicating to this already converted part of your party, what's the real political objective here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what's the end game here? The Democrats are just preaching to their own choir at this point. They're not trying to win over voters. They're not trying to make a real case for anything. They're just screaming it into the echo chamber. And Megyn Kelly nailed it when she pointed that out. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm watching a Senate hearing, I actually want to learn something about the nominee, not sit through another round of Orange Man bad theater. It's exhausting. And Ana Kasparian, she sees right through this nonsense.
And if the Democratic Party has to find a way to get back with Latino voters, get back its strength with working class voters, get back its strength with outside of the urban areas and more suburban and rural areas, and build up that support given what happened.
None of whom is watching this.
None of them are watching it, but they are seeing the atomized version of it all. And if it's not focused in a way that really sort of motivates them to care, motivates them to sort of feel that they have a stake in it, and it's only Mazie Hirono and Kirsten Gillibrand or Sheldon Whitehouse, very harsh, active liberal voices inside the party berating, nominees who the thing I think about that's strongest about Hegseth's nomination is, and I think there's an entire discussion we should have about how he brought it back, how he resuscitated it, because it was hanging on a thread there for a while. But it's that he wants to bring an infantry perspective to national security decision making, and to the posture of the armed services. And there is a focus on making sure that the president's vision is executed and implemented, despite what some of the military brass who would disagree. However you fall on that, that's a really good, strong place to argue, rather than some of the topics that they choose to fight on, which were very specifically tailored to an already converted liberal Democratic base.
Yeah, you cheated on your wives. Okay. I want to say this, having practiced law for many years and sat in the Supreme Court as a correspondent for 3, they should be more like the Supreme Court justices, who disagree vehemently, but it's almost never, 1% of the time, maybe, if that, maybe not even, maybe I'm being ungenerous, do you ever hear hysterics from the left or the right, from the women or the men. The women on this U.S. Supreme Court, far left though they may be, Sotomayor, Brown, Jackson, they don't behave that way. They maintain their composure and their dignity, and they can slice and dice with the best of them. And I realize they have a different audience they're trying to persuade, which is most of the righties down the way. But and they're, to your point, Anna, these women were trying to get sound bites that would be energetic or motivating or soothing in some way to their base. But
to make
I
headlines
think
too.
Womankind suffers when they behave like the hysterical 50s housewives who men would rush to drug up when they behave that way.
Yes, this right here is why Ana Kasparian stands out. She's calling out the double standard, and she's 100% right. If you want to be taken seriously in politics, act like an adult. Look at the Supreme Court justices. Disagree all you want, but they handle it with composure. Meanwhile, the far-left female politicians are out here screaming like they're on The View. It's embarrassing, and honestly, it's hurting women.
Okay, wait.
Gosh.
Let's move on because I want to play you another soundbite. Where did it go? Number 4. This is Adam Schiff and Pam Bondi.
You have the independence to say that. You have the gravitas, the stature, the intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election. Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I won't do it. I won't play politics with any ongoing investigation.
So let me ask you another.
Like you did leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo.
All right, Anna, what I see there is
go ahead.
a page out of the Kayleigh McEnany book. Remember when Trump went through all these press secretaries and he settled on Kayleigh McEnany, who was young, like a sort of an ingenue, recently out of Harvard Law and had spent some time at CNN, and she got up there and turned the tables inside that press briefing room where she would attack the press. And Republicans hate the press, so it was absolutely risk-free for her.
Yeah, and you know what? It worked because she knew exactly what she was doing. Just like Pam Bondi knew exactly what she was doing in that hearing. The Democrats tried to trap her, and she didn't fall for it. Classic move. And Megyn Kelly saw it for what it was. Another weak attempt to force a gotcha moment that doesn't actually change anything. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if the best thing you can come up with in a hearing is asking the same question over and over, maybe you should rethink your strategy. It's lazy, it's transparent, and honestly, it just makes them look desperate.
And it worked. It worked really well. Trump loved it. Republicans enjoyed it. People started watching the briefings again. I'm seeing this pattern now with Bondi, a little bit with Pete. They've been nice to Marco Rubio, but this is an effective tactic that most importantly, I think, the boss enjoys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure if Trump was watching, he absolutely loved the way she handled the confirmation hearing yesterday. But I will say this. Look, I think she did a good job in terms of optics for sure. I wish that the Senate confirmation hearings were less about the optics and politics and more about the records of these individuals. And so I would have preferred that she just said Biden won the 2020 election. That way it would take the one and only question away from the Democrats. Well, she said
didn't say he
Biden
won.
is the president.
She said he's president.
Exactly. And so that allowed for the Democrats to continue asking the same boring question over and over and over and over again. And I would have loved for them to delve into her record in Florida, right? I want to learn more about her. I'm sure the American people want to learn more about her. But honestly, at this point, the Democratic Party has one speed and one speed only. And I'm sure it was aggravating for her as well to be asked the exact same question over and over again.
So, I mean, yeah, Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian absolutely crushed this. They called out the hypocrisy, the bad strategy, and the embarrassing theatrics of the far left. And they didn't hold back. And honestly, it needed to be said. These hearings are supposed to be about serious vetting, not viral clips for Twitter. But the Democrats can't help themselves. They'd rather scream and perform than actually engage in real debate. Luckily, we have people like Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian to cut through the nonsense and tell it like it is. And that's why they'll always be ahead of the game. Absolute takedown. End of story.